with that? Okay, is it on? Yeah, it's on video. Oh, that's good. I like that for the video. Okay, part 3, part 1.
It doesn't matter. It's just ongoing, being alive.
All right, but it's astrology. Okay, so you've got Peter Mitchell here again, and he's going to present another angle of the Aquarian approach to astrology.
Well, it's not even another angle. It's just a forensic unpacking of the tool that you've got, and so really, really simple. And I got it from Alan Oaken when I very first started studying astrology. In his book, he made this beautiful point that all the glyphs are just simply made up of 3 things. So we've got. Is that seeable, Viola?
Oh, it's gone black. Why has it gone black?
Oh, it does.
Oh, okay, cool.
It does.
How do we know
it saves its power.
Okay, good.
Because a lot of times when you're using a GoPro, you don't necessarily have to see. You're wearing it on your head, and you're going around. But we will just have faith that it's exactly where it needs to be.
Yep.
But we do know that when you're using astrology, that's not a very tidy circle, but on your chart you would use that circle to say where the sun is in the chart. So the sun is wherever it is, and you put a circle there, and that's the sun. So like the sun is a circle, and it's radiating and being the impetus to be. So the circle represents your spirit, your will to be. As in every living thing. So a little seed has a will to be, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be a tree or a shrub or a herb or whatever. In there, it's got a will to be. And an animal stays alive for its whole life. And us, we've got a will to be. And so that spirit is that. But then also in astrology, we use the crescent moon. So that we use that to identify the moon in the chart, but more importantly, in our using all of the glyphs, the crescent moon, and let's do
and what's the crescent moon represent?
The soul.
The soul is the crescent moon.
The soul.
Right.
So our soul as opposed to our spirit. So we've got that will to be, and I like to think of the soul, my simple interpretation of the soul is it's the sum total of all that I have ever been right up to the moment I ponder so. So
the immortal being.
Well, it's the capture of everything. So it's sort of like if you think that you've got a recording device like that little camera, it's been filming your every thought, act and deed since you took your first breath. But more so than it just being a recording, it's a living recording that is evolving. So it's working in with those other dimensions of yourself. So it is evolving that which you are, because you're the sum total of everything that you've been. Through all those experiences, you are evolving that which you are navigating your spirit to do. So your spirit just wants to come out and do life, but it doesn't want to make the same mistakes all the time. So your soul has recorded all the stuff that you've done. And there's certain stuff I'm not going there, I'm not going to do that again. And that's a part of what the soul's job is. It's recorded all of those experiences, it's holding that as a noetic intelligence, so you, as your spirit zooming through, it goes, I know not to do that.
And hence initiative. You know, when you intuit something, you know, your soul's already had that experience, and so it intuits.
Yes, so all of that complicated labyrinth is... And that's why it's got those 3 symbols. So the other one, of course, is the cross. So here we've got soul over spirit over matter. Now, for those who know astrology will know that that's Mercury. Right. So that's the code for Mercury. So the soul, so that which we are recording and evolving as our knowing, is above our spirit. It's above our impetus to be, and it's above matter. So meaning matter, I stay over there, I'm objective to you, but my spirit is dedicated to that higher aspect of soul, of endeavouring. So Mercurius, which rules Gemini, a lot of its impetus is sort of like the investigative journalist. So if you sort of think of Mercury, that's how I'd like to think of Mercury, as the investigative journalist. It just goes, oh yeah, that's interesting. Oh yeah, but what about that? And so it's continually penetrating and looking in, and so it's wanting to broaden. So it's honouring, the spirit is honouring the soul. The soul wants to evolve what is the sum total of what you are. So in that one, the soul is the important top thing, and then the spirit is underneath that, and matter's underneath that.
And it's interesting in the yogic teachings because they hold the intellectual mind right up high, and here you've got that same evolution of the mind being held up high.
Well, that
in the
Mercury
spirit of the soul.
is our intellect.
Yeah.
So that's what Mercury, so it represents our intellectual intelligence. So it rules Gemini, the air sign. It also rules Virgo, the earth sign.
Yeah.
So that is, if you think of that relationship of that dual rulership, Mercurius is in mythology the fleet-footed messenger of the gods. And so why is that so? Because every dimension of our beingness, it communicates. So I've got fire, air, water and earth in my intelligence. So I've got a sensory, so I can kick my toe and I've got that information coming through. But I've kicked my toe because I've just kicked someone in the shin. So at an emotional level, that part of that communication of the complexity of reality, there's some reason why I've kicked that person in the shin. So there's that emotional dimension of our experience, that physical dimension of our experience, the intellectual dimension of our experience, and the noetic dimension of our experience. So Mercurius, our intellect, interpenetrates all those four dimensions and can communicate. Doesn't matter which one. Okay, I've touched that.
Sure.
The reason I've touched it is because they were annoying me. The reason they're annoying me because of this long history that I have of them in my noetic intelligence, and my intellect is in the complexity of whatever our communication is. That communication led to my feeling that, and my response was to kick them in the shin. So you can sort of see Mercurius as the fleet-footed messenger of the gods is our intellect's capacity to bring together all dimensions of our experience of reality. So that's Mercury. Let's do a different one that we know. We've just got that one.
Okay. So what have we got here, Pete?
Spirit over matter. So that's Venus.
Yep.
So what clues does our journeying into a meditation on what our Venusian qualities are, our expression of our, so it's like Venus and Mars is our yin expression and our yang expression. So Mars, the god of war, which is basically the opposite. Let's do on the other side.
Yeah.
So it's generally drawn with an arrow on top, but we could think of that as being just the opposite of Venus. We could also have it as, let's just do that. Actually,
oh, there we go.
there's Mars, there's Venus.
Ah, there we go.
But the thing about Mars is that, instead of just being matter above spirit, it's now got the impetus of spirit wanting to penetrate matter. So it's sort of like it's got its arm back and it's diving in. It's diving in deliberately and with a great impetus. So Mars represents that deliberate participation, deliberate activation, whereas Venus is a magnetic attraction. So Venus does the opposite. So rather than going and deliberately doing, its deliberateness is in doing nothing but magnetically drawing in, which we understand of the feminine of our species. Like in the whole behaviour and expression of our women folk is, makeup and beautiful clothes and presentation, because we're obeying that spirit over the top of matter. So if spirit is over the top of matter, it's sort of saying, let's rearrange matter so that spirit can be present or observable.
Right.
So I'm drawing you into me.
Yeah.
I've put my makeup on, I've done my hair, I've sorted my clothing out, because that's my yin power. That's my ability to magnetically attract in.
Yeah.
And so then that Mars energy is saying, that's what I want, that's who I, and so they then deliberately pursue.
Sure, that's where Spirit's heading.
That's right, and so
Spirit in that direction.
yeah, and so in that interesting inversion, so I don't know, you just sit and you've got matter over the top of spirit or spirit over the top of matter. So that simple code allows you in your meditation of looking at what that part of the horoscope, yin expression, yang expression, you can in your own, experience of your own reality, which is your soul can contemplate what that relationship to reality is for you. What is your yin expression relationship with reality? How is it that you are magnetically attracted? I can't physically penetrate that wall.
Yeah.
If I try to, I smack up hard against it, and Saturn says, okay, your soul is wanting to unconditionally and expansively go beyond that wall, but reality says, you can't see it because it's solid. And so that's why Saturn is a malefic. Much to your frustration, reality is.
Yeah.
And you have to align with its limits, its boundaries, its rules, its regulations, its stipulations and its laws.
Exactly.
You have to work in with them. You don't have to be dominated and locked in a cage by them, but you have to work in with them. And that's where Jupiter, the opposite, comes in. So it's our Jupiter part of it is what we have got as our soul over the top of matter. So if your soul is over the top of matter, so the expansive unconditionality of your soul is saying, okay, matter, I appreciate that you're there, but geez, I really want to have this experience. I want to do that sort of thing. I want to, connect with that being. So my limitlessness of my soul is wanting to reach out and be the entire universe. And so physical matter and structure, be it as it may, I'm endeavouring to go beyond that. But I can't go beyond it because I'm perpetually in sync. Jupiter and Saturn are perpetually in, I think, divine proportion to each other. And so you perpetually, as you're expanding out in your limitless, unconditional nature, wanting to penetrate reality and draw an experience, as you do that more and more, well then more and more of reality is coming up against you, and so more and more limits and boundaries and obstacles and all those sorts of things are being met. So then there'll be an inversion. There will come a point where that limitless and unconditionality of your soul, being, like its attitude and its perception is over and above reality, over and above the cross of matter. There will come a time when there'll be an inversion where you think, oh crikey, I can't go past that wall. Okay, my unconditionality has met a condition that I must honour. My limitlessness has found a limit.
It's interesting as well with Jupiter and Saturn. If you look at Jupiter ruling Sagittarius and Pisces, it's holding the space where you've got Saturn ruling Capricorn and Aquarius in the middle. They've set their foundation. Saturn's set a nice strong foundation there together. And yet Jupiter's gone either side and said, oh wait a minute, we're holders of this space where you think you've set your foundation.
So Jupiter, when you think of it in those rulers, because it is beautiful to look at the horoscope wheel and realise that each one of those 12 divisions is an intelligence field. So each intelligence field has its own incredible dynamics of intelligence. So like in Aries, it's masculine cardinal fire is the building blocks of it. Then you go down to fixed earth, feminine fixed earth, the Taurus. Then you go to mutable masculine air, the Gemini, and so on and so forth. So all of those intelligence fields as you learn all the nuts and bolts of them, they've got their own distinct flavour, which is identified by these skeletal
symbols.
But then, when we're looking at these dudes and say, okay, well, Mars is domiciled to Aries. So because it's domiciled to Aries, that means that it's home space. Shay is domiciled to this place. So when we come in and we feel into who Shay is, we're in her space and we can see that her spirit and her soul has put all that which she is. And so that's the same for Mars. So Mars being the god of war, I always imagine the intelligence field of Mars being a dojo. Where the martial artist, that's his home. And so when you go to his home, he's got, for him, cooking and all that sort of stuff, it's just got a little sink and a little simple stove over in the corner, but what's important for Mars is the mat in the middle, where you're going and you're training, and you've got all your gym set up, and you've got all your weapons on the wall, you've got your swords and you've got your guns and all that sort of stuff. So when you're in Aries, the domicile of Mars, you're looking, so then when we're now talking about, initially in this conversation we were talking about, Saturn's domicile is in Capricorn and Aquarius, and Jupiter's domicile is in Sagittarius and Pisces. So it's got two places, and so in its fire home, so Jupiter has a fire home, which is Sagittarius, which is fire, masculine, mutable fire. And so when we think of mutable, masculine mutable, I like to think of a monk. So in a monk's domicile, the evidence of their magnetic attraction sexually have been brought into a balance, and so they've got more an intent or an agenda of being more celibate or more contained, because they are, they're endeavouring to bring their yin and their yang into a balance. So they're endeavouring to do the alchemy of what, say, like in Gemini, when we mix the astrology with the tarot, Gemini is the home of the lovers. And so the lovers are, as we know, from falling in love and being in love, all of a sudden they become more than the sum of their parts, which is sort of like one of the crowning glories of the whole thing, is being able to operate in that alchemy of divine union. And so we can manifest that out in our physical relationships in the external infinity by going into relationships and endeavouring to pursue a soul fusion where two people are acting out that alchemy in their means of ultimately being able to learn and perform and enjoy that alchemy within them. That's what we're...
As opposed to the Piscean holding the other Jupiter around Saturn, being
it's in the nun. So it's in mutable...
The nun and the monk standing holding
and space. So the feminine is endeavouring to do that alchemy in a different way to the masculine. So when you sort of think of a monk as performing the alchemy of bringing his yin and yang into perfect balance so that he may become greater than the sum of his parts, so he will do it differently to a chick who's saying, okay, I'm doing the same thing as you. I'm going to do that alchemy of soul and bring my yin and yang into a soul fusion, and I'm going to be greater than the sum of my parts. But because I'm a chick, I'm going to do it in a completely different way to you, who's a bloke. And so that yin androgyny and yang androgyny, so the yin feminine androgyny is Virgo and Pisces. And that yang androgyny is Gemini and Sagittarius. So if we're looking to try and decipher, to decode, to forensically unpack what the whole Jupiter thing is about, in the process of the wheel, that domicile exists in process before. It's the first one, it's the fire, the spirit. So it's the spiritual home of Jupiter, because it's the fire. So what we know of and understand in dot points of Sagittarius, it's the traveller. It wants to go and see what everyone else is doing
Would
and how they do it.
Would you denote the tarot card, the chariot with that energy? Or
No,
not?
the chariot belongs to Cancer.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Which tarot card would you denote with Sagittarius?
Sagittarius is temperance or art.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And so it's that. So to understand Sagittarius really, really simply, it is an arrow, right?
Yeah.
But the arrow is our beingness wandering into the mystery of life and creation. So the archer has got their awareness. So the arrow's representing our awareness. And he's pulled it back and he shot it as high as he can go. And so he can't get up there, but he can do something that gets a part of him up there. So I really want to get the bigger picture. That's why Sagittarius is represented by the traveller. It wants the bigger picture. What is this world I'm living in? And I've gone to all those countries. I've gone and sat around those fires and in those kitchens and gone to those, towns and had all of those experiences. So I'm collecting this bigger picture. My awareness has been shot up so high I can see the whole lot. And so that's what Jupiter, in its unconditionality, it is endeavouring to get the bigger picture. And so that bigger picture then is seen when we look at the other domicile of Jupiter, which is Pisces. So that yin aspect of that mutability is in that water sign is, we can understand it by looking at the co-ruler Neptune, is the highest octave of the femininity, getting the vibe of things, checking every neighbourhood of existence.
So going back to the symbols.
Okay, let's go back to the symbols. So we've got for Neptune, well actually we should do them in order, because in the scheme of things, Uranus in the solar system, you've come to the end, they say that you've got the personal planets, the Sun and the Moon and Mercury and Venus and Mars and Saturn and Jupiter, and they are all seeable with the naked eye. All the other ones are beyond, so they're further away and not as evident to us. And so you've got Chiron who's snuck in there after Saturn, and he's the rainbow bridge, and that is that shamanic means of reaching into these three other capacities that we wear. So Uranus essentially is you've got a bit missing.
Matter. Oh, sorry.
It should have a circle at the bottom.
There we go. So we've got matter.
So we've got, but look, work from the top down.
Okay.
And so generally that cross is there. It joins. So the cross of matter has put the soul, so you'll see it on that particular symbol.
Yeah, go on, keep talking.
The soul is like that. It's been forced into a situation of reflection. It's looking at itself. The soul is there. Look, one there and one there. And so the cross of matter has separated soul into a position of self-awareness, self-reflection.
Right.
And that's essentially what Uranus is about, because it represents awareness itself and and so the soul has been put into a situation of self-reflection where I like to think of Uranus as about thinking about how you think about how you think.
Who's the observer observing the observer?
Yeah, all of that, which is all what, its domicile is Aquarius. Aquarius is the two squiggly lines. The two squiggly line is the fifth element, which is ether. And ether is that element, from my understanding of all of the mind-boggle of astrology, is reachable only when all the other four are brought into balance and harmony. So if we've got our fire, air, water and earth intelligences and we're juggling them, we're trying to keep them all even and balanced and flowing and moving, that condition of state is the etheric, where we're consciously participating with being consciously nourished by the etheric. And that's what Uranus is about. We have become aware of awareness. We're conscious of consciousness, and it's that process. So
conscious of the matter above the spirit.
No, well, see, matter is the means by which, because it's in between the two souls, are in separation. It's the cross of matter that's between them. So matter has determined that awareness of the soul has to come into place.
Right.
And that's all above spirit. So our impetus to be and everything is pushed down. So my impetus to be and to grow is just sort of being put to a point of less importance at the moment, because matter is determining that I've got to start looking at what's going on. I've got to start saying, okay, what am I doing here? Who am I? All those sorts of questions is what the Fool is all about, see? And so you see soul has been leveraged apart into a self-reflection over the top of spirit, so like it's suppressing spirit. So then next in line is it's dropped spirit altogether, and now the cross of matter is penetrating into the soul. So Neptune is matter and soul becoming almost like one. So we've got this, like I say, Neptune, king of the ocean. So we have got the king of the ocean is the king of the ocean of human emotion and our capacity to feel and sense into it. The highest octave of our feminine is what Neptune represents. And so it is there so that we can feel, so that it's of spirituality, mysticism, all that sort of stuff. So we are joining together and blending together the mysticalness and the mystery of life and creation with matter, so that they all become one and the same. It becomes a bit confusing because one of the things that we know of Neptune, who rules Pisces, and one of the biggest hazards to Pisces is that you as an individual are a drop in the ocean of human emotion, but the biggest hazard is knowing which bit is the ocean and which bit is the drop. And that's generally Pisces' greatest hazard, is wearing everybody else's feelings, because it's not got the boundaries to say, no, this is my feeling, that's what they're feeling. But poor old Pisces, because it loses that definition of which bit is the drop and which bit is the ocean, all of these other feelings come in and they're feeling those feelings as their own. And so then Pluto is the highest, that's the highest octave of our femininity.
It's like the matter drops, stops penetrating and just holds the soul and the spirit.
And so it's dropped the spirit. Now it's put the spirit up high into objectivity. See, it's not touching anything, it's just held there. So the soul is not touching the spirit, it's just put the spirit there in that ultimate sense of reflection, and the soul is holding it there, and so it's got matter is down there, so it's less important. Spirit's the most important thing about Pluto. And so the thing about the whole Pluto thing, as it's expressed in its behaviour in the chart, is absolute ruthless use of our yang power. The beautiful example of that is, in my reading all of that stuff, is the atomic bomb. So it's saying, okay, we can release absolutely mind-blowing amounts of force and power from the tiniest piece of matter. So the splitting of the atom makes the atomic blast. But even more so was the belligerent, arrogant usury of that knowledge and power to go and kill a whole city of people. So that absolute belligerent, uncaring, totally destructive extreme of the usury of yang power is what Pluto represents. It's the highest octave of our masculinity, to the point of being absolutely destructive, self-destructive, irreverent, disrespectful, all of that. So like in its utter extreme, as all of these are, they're positive and negative, but also what I've always identified as the positive side of that plutonic force, if you can use it well, is obsessive compulsiveness. So obsessive compulsive, in a part of my journey observing that, when I was sort of pondering on a bunch of years ago, 10, 15 years ago, and that particular thing was coming into my awareness, that what is the positive usury of that extreme yangness example by Pluto, I came to learn of a particular bloke who was absolutely, obsessively, compulsively with the guitar. He couldn't stop playing it.
Right.
Yeah, to the point where he wouldn't eat, he wouldn't sleep, he just kept going and going and going and going.
Yeah.
But that obsessive compulsiveness, he became a master of classical guitar in like 3 or 4 different whether flamenco, Eastern European, whatever other ones, I don't know, but 4 different realms of classical guitar. He just went in, and now he is a recognised master. And he did that all by the time he was 25 years old. And so meaning that he had that plutonic force, and he channeled it in a way, outside observers say, oh, he's gone nuts, he just won't put it down. But then as the years go by, say, oh, crikey, he's a master now. And so you can see like the extreme negative usury of that plutonic force in the upper, masculine extreme is the atomic bomb and the usury of it, or we can become absolutely, completely, indomitably determined to do something, and nothing gets in the way, and that's the other side of that extreme highest octave of our masculine.
Right. And I reckon we'll leave it there.
Yeah, leave it at that.
Because that's beautiful. All right, cheers, thank you. Right.
That was super good.
That's great. So that filmed the whole thing. How would I have a look to see whether it happened?
It went black.
What do you do?
I hope it's
I know.